Hi, I'm Ryan, and I want to explain the difference to you between helpful accommodations and not helpful or even detrimental accommodations for kids. So when we talk about helpful accommodations, we can talk about things like the accommodations that are in a 504 plan or an IEP in school. So things like, extra time on test or sitting towards the front of the class to help kids focus. Those are examples of good accommodations. Another useful accommodation would be things like using speech to text if typing or writing is difficult for them, or using a calculator if math is something that they struggle with. Things like having a ramp for people who use wheelchairs. That's another example of a good accommodation. So I could go on, but I think you get the point about what good and helpful accommodations are. So let's talk about accommodations that are not helpful and can actually be detrimental to kids. So when I talk about this, what I talk about is what's called family accommodation. Family accommodation is when parents or family members change their behavior to alleviate or avoid their child's temporary distress. Let me give you some examples of family accommodation that are not helpful and can actually make things worse. Let me start off with anxiety, because a lot of times when kids have anxiety, parents accommodate the child's anxiety, and they do that out of love without knowing that they are actually making their child's anxiety worse. So an example of accommodating anxiety would be, for example, letting a child sleep in your bed because they're scared of sleeping in their own bed. Another example would be letting them stay home from school because they're anxious about a test they have. Another example of accommodating anxiety would be allowing your child to call you 25 times when you're out because they get anxious when you're away, and giving them reassurance when you'll be home. Those are types of family accommodations around anxiety that are not helpful. Here are some examples of accommodations around inflexibility that are not helpful. Let's say that you make dinner and your child decides at the table that they don't want to eat what you made, even though they like it, and then you go and make them something else. That's an example of accommodating inflexibility. Another example of accommodating inflexibility would look like, let's say you have two kids and you drop your one child off at school and then drop your other child off at school second, even though that's out of your way, because they wanted to finish playing a game on their iPad. So when you accommodate inflexibility, it makes inflexibility worse over time. When you accommodate anxiety, it makes anxiety worse over time. Here are some common ways I see families of kids with ADHD accommodate behavior. One example would be allowing your child to have extra gaming time because you want to avoid a blow up, meltdown, whatever it is. Another example would be giving into what they want because they use emotional manipulation on you by saying things like, "You're not listening to me, you don't care about me." So you give them what they want because you're feeling guilty about what they said. This last one is a common family accommodation I see, particularly in families of younger kids with ADHD, which is tolerating the child's physical aggression towards parents or siblings and not doing anything about it and just kind of letting it go as if nothing happened. The research data on family accommodation is very clear. It shows it makes things worse over time, not better, whether that's anxiety, whether that's inflexibility, whether that's emotional dysregulation or aggressive behavior, whatever it might be. In Scaffolding Better Behavior, my parent behavior training program, I teach families how to reduce family accommodation using an evidence-informed approach. So remember, there's a lot of helpful accommodations like the ones I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and there's a lot of ways that families accommodate kids in ways that are not helpful and can actually be detrimental as well. If you're looking for strategies to help improve behavior, flexibility, and so on, please check out the behavior playlist at the ADHD Dude YouTube channel, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.